Welcome to my talk, Let's Break Some WCAG Rules. My name is Elise Kristiansen, and I'm a front-end developer in Variant in Norway. And I've been working as a front-end developer for about 8-9 years now. And I have seen countless of websites that has been launched without being accessible. And it's a very, very common issue, and that's why I have made this presentation today, to try to get you more aware of how it feels to be on a web that isn't made for you. And like the narcissist I am going to talk a little bit about myself before we begin. Trigger warning for all human parents out there. I call myself a cat mom to my 2 Bengal cats, Luna and Venus. And since I love showing them off, you are going to catch some glimpses of them during my presentation. During COVID, I developed some terrible, terrible habits. I developed something called grandma hobbies. And I know that it's a very typical thing that very many other people got during COVID. I began reading books and painting and taking care of herbs and plants. And I even got this grandma chair, and I'm snooping on my neighbors sitting in a grandma chair. That's not good. You can see Luna already there in the cat picture. But luckily, I managed to keep some part of myself. I still have my millennial hobbies. So I have girls' night out with friends and karaoke. I have girls' night in with Elder Scrolls Online. Here, my friend Katarina. I go on adventures, and I love to work out. And now you're probably wondering why I'm talking so much about myself. And to get to my point, because I do have a point, we need to zoom into this particular image. Because some of you might recognize these screenshots from a website called Warlogs. It shows how well I have done it in a computer game called World of Warcraft. And this number is it's called a parse. And those who know this kind of stuff know that that's a very pretty average score. So even though I sometimes play a little too much, I'm still pretty average. But I am able to play this game. And I am able to play it not only because I lack any severe disability that makes me unable to play a lot of other games, but also because World of Warcraft actually do a lot to make their game accessible to very many people. Now, and it's now I finally come to the point of this way too long introduction. So, do any of you recognize this guy? If you do, put your hand up. And if I tell you that his name is Mats Sten, do even more people recognize him now? Or if I tell you that he is also called Ibelin? Raise your hand if you have heard about Ibelin. Now, for those of you who haven't heard about him, Mats Sten was a Norwegian gamer who died of Duchenne muscular dystrophy at the age of 25. The condition gradually left him unable to participate in everyday activities, and as a result, he spent most of his life playing video games, particularly World of Warcraft. After his death, his parents mourned what they believed had been a lonely and isolated life. That belief changed when they began receiving messages from online friends all over the world. As his character Ibelin in World of Warcraft, Mats was able to form strong relationships and deep friendships. As his character, he was able to take part in the same activities as the other members in his guild. And he wasn't excluded from that world, as he so often was in the physical world. He made friends from all over the globe, and after his passing, more than 50 of those contacted his family to share what Mats had meant to them. The movie about his story, The Remarkable Life of Ibelin, has won a lot of both national and international prizes and has opened up eyes all over the globe for the importance of gaming and how community-driven it can be. So now, why am I telling you this story? This talk is about accessibility after all, so some of you might already see where this is going. Because Mats Sten was not unique in that he needed assistive technologies to play a game. Fortunately for him, World of Warcraft was a game he could play despite his condition. But not all games are like that. Not all websites are like that, and not all web apps are like that. As developers, we have a tendency to forget accessibility when we are building products. And when we do that, we are actively excluding people from our platforms. We are actively turning something that could have been inclusive into something exclusive. Every time we accept statements like, we don't focus on that here, or if users can't use our platform, then it's not made for them anyway, we should think about Evelyn and World of Warcraft. And if Blizzard had said the same thing 15 years ago, when Mats needed assistive technologies to play their game, then it wouldn't have been a movie about him at all. And we cannot continue to overlook our users. We cannot allow ourselves to avoid the responsibility we have as developers. Because making sure our products are inclusive and not actively exclusive, that's our responsibility. So I don't want you to remember every single little detail about every single WCAG standards when you go out from this room today. I want you to have 1 or 2 or 3 takeaways from this, just a feeling. I want you to write down 1 sentence on your phone or with the pen and paper or whatever. I don't mind seeing phones today. I don't mind you doing whatever you need to do to concentrate or follow the presentation. Everything is okay. So I want you to remember the feeling, and I don't want to point fingers at anyone. I'm not here to do that because I am not perfect myself. I'm still doing mistakes when it comes to accessibility. It's hard, and that's why we just need to be better together. So now, we can, before we continue, we need to talk a little bit about WCAG, what WCAG actually is. So, WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and it's the international standard for how we create websites. WCAG is divided into 3 levels. We have A, AA, and AAA. Level A is the most basic one, the bare minimum. So, this level is about avoiding complete barriers. For example, being able to navigate using a keyboard, providing alternative text for images, and avoiding relying solely on color to convey important information. If level A is not met, then your website is basically unusable for a lot of users. So that's the most important level to reach. But the legal requirement through the European Accessibility Act and in the UK through the Equality Act, that's the level, that's a AA level. And that level ensures good usability for most users. So it's still not a perfect usability for all users, but it's good enough to not exclude a lot of people from our web apps. This includes requirements such as sufficient color contrast, visible focus indicators, and meaningful HTML structure. And then we have the AAA, which is not a legal requirement, but it is something we should reach for. It's an inspiration to reach the AAA standard. So maybe it's not always that realistic to be able to reach the AAA, but you should try to. These include requirements such as sign language interpretation for videos, simpler language, and even stricter contrast requirements. And since we are talking about now trying to reach the AAA standard, I can tell you that right now this presentation has a contrast ratio at 6.27 to 1. And the contrast ratio criteria for the AAA standard for small text is 7 to 1. So we should bump this up a little bit. There we go. Now it should be even easier for you to read this presentation. And we are going to use that blue background through the rest of this presentation. approximately 15 to 25% of the population has some form of disability at any given time. That's a high number. That's a huge part of the population. And it can be cognitive, it can be physical, it can be temporary or permanent. It can be something like a sprained wrist that makes you unable to use a mouse on a computer for just a short amount of time. And it can be something like that your eyesight is slowly fading away. And you don't want to exclude such a huge part of the population from your web app. But 94.8% of all websites has at least one WCAG AA issue. And if you remember what I said earlier, that's not the highest level, that's the legal requirement. So that's insane. 94.8% of all websites are breaking the law. And it's like this, it's 79.8% of all websites has bad contrast. And then we have 55 has missing alternative text, 48% missing labels, 45% empty links, and 15.8% has empty buttons. And that's too bad. we should be better than this in the great year of 2026, okay? So now let's finally begin. I just need to drink a little bit coffee to keep my spirit up. Now, you have just received news from your doctor that you have gotten an eyesight syndrome and that you are going blind. So you are browsing the web looking for really important information about that eyesight syndrome. You click on a link that promises answers, and this is what you see through your screen reader. I shouldn't even have to talk anymore because you can just get all the information you need from my presentation slide. But you can't. Maybe if I click on my clicker, no, it's empty. But it's because you have lost your eyesight and this page just isn't made for you. Sorry, we can't make PowerPoint slides that accommodate every need now, can we? We should be able to. So, welcome to the category of WCAG standards for visually impaired people. This is a website that isn't written to be accessible at all. At this worst kind of example, all the information are hidden for the user. Maybe it contains text with images, images of text with no alternative text, or maybe the information is hidden on focus or hover or other interactive ways that a screen reader is disconnected from. We are breaking the non-text content. All visible content, images, icons, and graphics must have an alternative text, and the name, role, and value. Interactive elements needs a role, name, and a value. So, for example, we have an image, and do any of you know what's in this image? No, you don't, because it doesn't have any alternative text. And when you are using a screen reader, this is your experience of that image. It's empty, as an empty square. And some of you might have guessed what's in this image, because I did give you a little nudge. It's a cat. But that would be impossible if I hadn't told you that I was going to show off my cats during my presentation. So when you just add an alternative text, cat laying in a straw bed looking at the camera, the experience of the image will go from this empty box to something you can imagine. You give the same experience of the website to a person who can't see the image just by adding a little text. And it's important to remember that the alternative text also should provide all the information the image is giving in the context. And I'm going to explain that a little further. I have edited this image myself because I didn't want to use AI. So this is a Creative Commons licensed bird. It's not my actual cat who are trying to catch a bird. But I didn't want to use AI. And I am not good at Photoshop, so you have to excuse that. But now, let's say this is a cat who are trying to catch a bird. And it might have the descriptive text, a cat and a bird. But that doesn't say anything about what this image is trying to tell in a context. For an article about birds that are going extinct, the image text might be bird being hunted by a cat. It tells you something. It tells you that a cat is a predator to the birds that are going extinct, for example. Now, but for an article about a cat's behavior, the image text might be cat hunting a bird for fun. So the image text changes depending on the context. We have the same for SVGs. If you have an icon somewhere that it's important for the information, but you haven't described it, it will look like this for a screen reader, empty square again. But if you just add some information about what, are you surprised it wasn't a cat? I hope you were. Now, if you just add an ARIA label, bear, and a title, bear, the person using a screen reader will be able to visualize it. So that's the non-text content. Now we are browsing further. Oh, that's a bad contrast. Let's bump it up. Still pretty bad. Let's bump it up some more. There we go. Now we are still browsing, and we finally find a page that has text information about our eyesight syndrome. And it promises really important information. But it is pretty hard to find that important information when what meets us is this. And some of you might find the important information, but it is hard because this page isn't written with the appropriate tags. So you have to take the important information and wrap it around the appropriate HTML tags. And I have to drink before I have this little rant right now. Because you have to use the right HTML tag, please. Every time you want to use another div, just try to think about another tag to use. HTML, it's such a rich language. It has so many opportunities. It's so much easier to find all the important information if you have just written the website with the correct tags from the very beginning. There are tons of different HTML tags to use, and we developers are way too lazy when we are building products. And a ton of problems and issues would have been solved if we had just used the right, correct tags from the beginning. And now I'm pointing fingers because there are sinners in this room. I told you I wasn't going to point fingers, but I was lying because I am also a sinner. I have also used divs for way too much. Okay? But we tend to fall back to using divs on everything. I have even seen it in titles and links, and we just style them to look like we want to and put some on-clicks on them to just make things happen. And the problem here is that that issue isn't getting any better with more common use of AI, because we have been sinners for such a long time that AI thinks that that's the appropriate way to do it. So they use div for everything them also. So, okay, I'm going to call down, I'm sorry, my little rant. But yeah, use the right HTML tag. I am going to repeat myself on this matter. Okay, I'm not going to talk about every HTML tag that is out there for you, but I will give you a quick explanation of how titles work, because that's a very common issue. The different numbers in the heading tags are for semantic and not for styling, as so many people use them for. You can't just use heading 1 tags multiple times at the page because that's the biggest title. We have a structure. So every site needs 1 heading 1 tag and 1 only. That should be the first heading tag on your page. So that's the main title for the page, and every theme on the page should be introduced with a heading 2 tag. This is a subtitle. So it's the subtitle to the main title. And since they are on the same page, if you need a title connected to the subtitle, you can use a heading 3 tag. Every title that falls under the heading 2 tag should be a heading 3, and so on and so on. Personally, I don't usually use more than 1, 2, and 3, and sometimes 4, but you have 5 and 6 as well. Now, I can give you an example. Let's say we have an article about animal breeds. We have a subtitle called dogs under animal breeds, and then we list up with heading 3 all the different kinds of dog breeds, and let's say we have written a paragraph about each of them. And then we move on to cats, which are not something that is connected to dogs, so that's a new heading 2 tag. And then we list up cat breeds, for example, Bengals. Did anyone say Bengals? Oh, I just love showing off my cats. Now, they are to get your focus back on me, because this can be a little theory heavy. I'm sorry. Now you can go again. So that's titles for you. And I am going to talk a little bit about contrasts. I told you earlier that we have the AA and we have the AAA. And even though I'm not going to talk very much about the AAA standard today, because I want us to, first we have to make sure that not 95% of all websites has legal issues before we move on to the AAA. But I think that is important for the contrast, because that's an easy one to follow. The contrast requirement for large text on AA is 3:1. And for small text, it's 4.5:1, and it looks kind of like this. And that's why, because some of you might have a hard time reading that large text right now. So that's why you should try to make sure you have the AAA standard for contrast ratio, because large text is 4.5:1 instead of 3:1, and small text is 7:1. Now, yell out if you see a number. No one? If you can see a number, don't be shy. Okay, if you see the number 73, congratulations, you are probably colorblind. So I have used this image because I have 2 brothers who are both colorblind, and they have, throughout their life, have been experiencing people coming up to them with these kinds of circles where the people who aren't colorblind can see a number and they can't, and that's very annoying. So when we finally find a picture where I can't see the number, but they can see the number, they were like, oh, finally, now it's you who are the weird one who can't see the number. So, yeah, it is a number here. I have asked multiple different people with colorblindness about what number they see, and everyone said 73. So that's where I have my sources. The point is that colors are perceived differently for different kinds of people. And that's why you can't use color as an only way to give out information. If you have a warning about something, you can't use the color red as an only indicator. You have to have something else as well. Some of you might see that green on red text as the one that is easiest to read, and some of you might see the red on red as the easiest one. I have used a green tone that people with colorblindness also see as a green most of the time to make it easier, and just to get the point across. But both of them have the exact same contrast ratio. Both of them have 1.5:1 as contrast ratio. So that's interesting, because some see them very differently and think one is very easier to read. And if we put on a grayscale, because there are people who see in grayscale as well, that's not the same as color blindness all the time. That one, this side, that a lot of us saw as the one easiest to read, actually became darker than the red on red. But here they have the same contrast ratio. So that's interesting, right? And the point here is that you have to be careful when you are putting color text on top of a color background. Now we have been breaking these WCAG standards, non-text content, info and relationship, headings and labels, use of color, but it looks like we are forgetting one. There we go, the contrast. So now I hope I have gotten my point across. Språkbarrierer. Av språk-WCAG-standarder så har vi både språk på siden og språk på deler av siden. Alle nettsider skal ha et korrekt språkattributt. som forteller hvilket språk som innholdet er skrevet på. Er det noen som sliter litt med å skjønne hva jeg sier? Ja, jeg tror noen her skjønner hva jeg sier, og det er det viktigste, fordi jeg kan ikke lage presentasjoner som er laget for alle her. Jo, nei, jeg skal prøve å fikse det. Oh, language is set to NO. There we go, now it's English. Let's start over. Language barriers. All websites must have a correct language attribute that specifies which language the content is written in. Like this. For example, an English page should be marked with an language English. It's because the screen readers needs to be able to switch to the correct language and the right pronunciation. And then we have language of parts. So if parts of the content are in a different language than the main one, they must be marked, and this allows the screen reader to automatically change from English and then to Norwegian when they see a Norwegian segment. So they go from main title written in English to en liten norsk seksjon med tekst som kun er skrevet på norsk. So that was the language barriers for you. I'm sorry if my way to get the point across seems a little silly, but it is so that you remember it easier. Motoric problems. Our next topic is motoric problems, especially the ability to use a keyboard on your computer, which is a very common one. Website 2, navigation. Website to navigation. How a experience for is, isn't, is again. This, keyboard, it, that, developed. Now, what does all of this mean? This is how it is to experience a website that isn't developed for keyboard navigation. I was very happy with that one, actually. So we have two buttons, a back button and a next button. And when I am using a keyboard, I want to first reach, I want to be able to reach the buttons, but I will first be able to reach the back button and then the next button afterwards. That's the logical order I see them in. But one common issue is that we, again, as I said earlier, don't use the right HTML tag to style a button. So I have seen plenty of buttons and other clickable elements being coded with divs and other tags. But HTML attributes already takes care of so much of the logic connected to said element. And this element right now is unreachable for a person using a keyboard. And I know that a lot of developers would have solved this issue by just adding a tab index or something to make it reachable, and then yes, it will be reachable, but you shouldn't have to use hacks. You can write that one. Don't use hacks when HTML already takes care of all the logic for you. Okay? So you have to do the work of finding the right HTML tag and writing it properly. Now, this example may seem silly with the styling, which is absolute positioning, but I have seen examples of this in greater scale, where the developer just have marked up everything in the HTML document. They don't have any feeling about, right, if it's in that order or that, or they just write down everything and then afterward they place this everything around on the app. And yes, I have seen this in action. So it's not that silly example, it's an actual realistic example. So forcing absolute positioning may be the only way some developers know how to position element. So, but it needs to be in the right order in the code as well. And also you should try to avoid positioning everything as absolute. You should use other ways to style your content. And the important part here is that the back button is first and the next button is next in the code as well. Now this may be a more typical issue that I have seen a lot. The developer may have already marked up the content, and instead of editing the HTML, you just put on this flex direction row reverse. Let's say you have a banner which is bigger with clickable elements on both sides of the banner, and then the designer tells you that, oh, but I want them to switch place. So instead of just having to copy paste it and tweak it to look good again, you just put on a flex direction row reverse because it makes it look right. But it doesn't change the tab navigation. So you have to do the actual work and copy paste the content to be in the right order. And again, this is a hack. This is how it's supposed to, the flex direction row reverse isn't for hacking something to look right when you have actual buttons like this that needs to be in the right order. Now, and then we have visible focus. Keyboard users need to know where they are. And when you don't have any visible focus, navigating with a keyboard will kind of be like watching this presentation with this as the only screen. It's just way too much content, and you don't know where you are, and it's impossible for you to know when nothing is clickable, when nothing clickable has any focus indicators. So keyboard users need to know where they are. If the focus indicator is missing or unclear, users navigating with tab cannot understand what element will be activated. And it prevents accidental actions. It helps people with low vision as well. It helps screen reader users who look at the screen, because there are a lot of screen reader users who aren't necessarily blind, but maybe they can't read because they have never been taught to read. So they use a screen reader while they are looking at the page. And when you have clear focus indicator, it's very easier for them to follow along with the content as well. So basically, it benefits everyone. Now, this is how it is to experience a website that is developed for keyboard navigation. Finally. So now we have been breaking and fixing keyboard. I think it's something wrong. Keyboard again. Oh, now I know it. We were in a keyboard trap. So users must not get stuck in any component when navigating with a keyboard. I'm sorry if some of these are a little bit on the nose, but yeah. You shouldn't have any character key shortcuts. You need the right focus order, and you have to have focus visible. And you can see what the WCAG standard they are breaking at the side here. And again, I told you I was going to repeat myself. Use the right HTML tag, please. Now, attention and distraction. And I'm sorry, this will be a little bit silly segment. So, read everything on this slide. 1, 2, 3. Boop. That was all the time you got. I'm sorry. A bit predictable, wasn't it? Maybe. Anyway, users must be able to extend, adjust, and disable time limits. So it will be reducing stress caused by time pressure. It allows slower processing and decision making. It prevents loss of progress due to timeouts. And it also supports users with ADHD, anxiety, and other functional challenges. Pause, stop, and hide. Users must be able to pause, stop, and hide moving, blinking, or scrolling, or auto-updating content. This will be supporting cognitive needs by reducing distractions that break concentration, allow users to process information at their own pace, preventing cognitive overload caused by constant motion, create a calmer and more predictable reading environment. There we go. So I'm sorry. Was that hard to focus on what I was saying while this was happening? I hope it was, because that's the point. So now I hope you remember that every time you want to add something very distracting to your page, how easy it is for people to be distracted by these kinds of noise. 3 flashes or below threshold. And I didn't want to exemplify this particular issue, because then I would have to make my presentation blink. And do any of you know why that would be a problem? Because flashing content can cause migraines, dizziness, nausea, and epileptic seizures. So just avoid content that flashes or keep it under threshold. And it also prevents overstimulation, panic responses, and cognitive fatigue. So that's nice. And that was attention and distraction for you. Timing adjustable, pause, stop, and hide, and 3 flashes or below threshold. Then we have understanding and memory and orientation. And I'm going to focus in on forms for this segment. There's a whole category of WCAG rules for inputs and forms under 3.3 that you can check out. But I don't have time to go through all of that. But I will just give you some of the basics. Forms must use proper semantic structure. All input elements must have visible label that describes it in a good way. So, for example, here, when you only have this placeholder as the only indicator and only information given to the user, when you are beginning to write, that will disappear. So maybe I just write Elise, and I have problems with my concentration or my memory, so I forget what the question was. Maybe it was the first name or the full name, or maybe I was supposed to write my surname only, so I had to type out everything I did write and begin again. So if you just add a label that describes what the user should write in this input field, it will be so much better experience for everyone. Now, should we accept this? How about now? It's probably something important, right? We had just forgotten the context, so and we have a problem with memory loss, and it's often we should accept things, so we just accept it for now, and let's see later what we were accepting. So, checkboxes and radio buttons needs to be actual radio buttons and checkboxes, written as input fields. They need to be accessible by both mouse and a keyboard, and both a screen reader and people who are able to view the application needs to understand exactly what they are selecting. Now, this has a lot of problems, not just a few. The question is written in a heading 3 tag, which is weird, and it's not written out fully either. When I don't have the same cognitive understanding of the page, it's impossible for me to know what they are asking me. And then we have input type checkbox, that's good enough, but it's not connected to the label in any way, and the label only says yes. That isn't giving us any information that either. So now we get to see what we were accepting in the right example. I henceforth acquaintance to the blood term set upon my soul and person to the Oligarchy Empire. Oopsie. But we do that every day anyway, don't we, with social media? But yeah, at least it's written out properly, so we now know what we are accepting. That's nice. And the label and the input field are connected with an ID and form. So, yay! Let's move on. So I said earlier that for forms there's a whole category under 3.3. So these are some more important standards that you should note down behind your ear. And you can check out 3.3 if you want to learn more about forms. So now we are going to talk about icons a little bit. And another common mistake when making a website that is understandable and easy to navigate is to use icons that is only visible that's the only visible element for a link, for example. And you can add an ARIA label, which makes you not break the WCAG standard. So it's not, if this has an ARIA label, it's not breaking any WCAG standard, but I will talk about it a little bit either way, because imagine this is the only thing shown in the top menu on a website, a backpack. For some people, there are clear and obvious places a link with a backpack will take you. But the problem is that different people have different associations to a backpack. So maybe some people think that it's a place to a travel page. A backpack can represent traveling and take you to a site for traveling. Maybe it means adventure or work. Some people only use backpacks for work. Maybe some people think it's for a marketplace, for example, a Facebook marketplace or anything. A friend of mine even said frisbee golf. So we have so many different associations to a backpack. So only using a backpack and not a word beside it it's stupid because it makes it harder to use your page. And I will use a house as an example, since that's a more commonly used icon for illustrating a home. Oh, not that kind of house. There we go. If you add a word or two about where the link is taking you, that is actually visible for everyone and not only those with a screen reader, it makes it so easier to understand the page. Maybe old Martha, who has been living in an apartment for her whole life, doesn't have the same associations to a house as you. And she's not browsing the web that much either, so she's not connecting a house to a home page at all. She is connecting it to a store, maybe, for example. So I think that LinkedIn is a great example of how this can be done if you compare it with Facebook. Even though maybe some of you think that Facebook, the Facebook banner is prettier to look at, but the LinkedIn one is easier to navigate and makes the user experience better, because not even I understand what all of these icons means all the time, and they are even changing sometimes. So if you just add the word, it makes it so much easier to use. And now we have come to the last segment of this presentation, hearing impairments. I'm trying to whisper to make it difficult for you to understand what I'm saying. I'm sorry, I can begin speaking again. So this is how it is to experience a website that has information that are only available by sound for every person with hearing impairments. And also every person who are looking at their device and can't use sound on their device for different kinds of reasons. They may be sitting in a bus and don't have earplugs or something. So it's empty. It's as empty as this square. And now I didn't want to use AI to make content for my presentation, and the problem is I can't use iMovie either, but I have tried to use iMovie as best as I can, and now you get to experience it, and it has very, very important information in this movie. So just try to get all the information you can from it. Did you hear anything? No, you didn't. And that's how it is to experience a video that doesn't have any captions when you can't hear. You don't get the information that is given in the video. So, oh, we have forgotten something. There we go, a little label. Now, this especially applies to videos, this segment. And for videos, we have 3 different WCAG standards to talk about. For A, we have captions on pre-recorded videos. For AA, we have captions on live videos. And on AAA, we have sign language. And I'm not going to talk that much about AAA standard, as I said earlier, but I just wanted you to be aware of it. So for captions on pre-recorded videos, we have a little checklist. It has to be, the video needs to have captions in VTT format. The text is both visible and optional for the user. It covers speech and important sounds. And the language is marked with a source language English, for example. So we are going to fix the video I just showed you. And so here we have a source, a video, then we have a track. And you can add as many tracks that you want to in different languages, but the important part is that you at least have the language that the video is in, so that you don't exclude anyone who can't hear. from the people who, compared to the people who can't hear the video. So you need a track, it's kind of captions, with a source to a file, a VTT file, as I said earlier. And then we have a source language, English. And we are going to take a closer look at the captions. It looks kind of like this, from 00000 to 000.500. We have a little drum roll, so you can look forward to that. And then we, from that means from 0 seconds to 2.5 seconds. And from 2.5 seconds to 5 seconds, I say hello and welcome to this very informative video. I told you it was informative. And then I say, today we're going to talk about accessibility, and then there are going to be some silly background music. So let's take a look at the video now that we do have captions. Hello and welcome to this very informative video. Today we are going to talk about accessibility. I'm sorry, did you hear it? Because it was sprang from my computer instead of, okay, nice, that's good. So that was the experience of the video when you have captions. You get the experience that everyone else is getting, even though you might be, you maybe have to imagine the silly background music yourself, but at least you know that it's there. So that's nice. I'm sorry if it was a little bit cringy, but that's okay. For captions on live videos, we have a checklist as well. It needs to be real-time, accurate enough to follow the event, available during broadcast, and also include speech and important sounds. And I have 2 examples of how this can be done. For example, number 1, we have a real-time captioning service. A television studio uses real-time captioning service to create captions for its evening news online, for example. And example number 2 is the use of CART. A user watches an online seminar on their mobile device, including captioning provided through the use of Communication Access Real-Time Translation, which is CART. So the caption provided also benefits in-person participant. If some of you, for example, can't hear, you can use the streaming and see the captions and then understand what I'm saying through that as well. So people can use their own device for this. So that's nice. And yeah, that was captions for you. And the last segment. And if you are still needing some advices, I have some more things to say. We have some small things you can do still. Take some easy courses. There are plenty of easily accessible courses out there that can be done in just a few hours of the workday. They are definitely worth the investment. Your boss and your customer should want to send you on these courses to make you an expert at accessibility. Then we use a scanner on your project. My favorite scanner is Pally, and you just install it on your computer. It's very easy. I even managed to get my friend who are working with social marketing to do it, and she was able to exit Vim. So if she's able to exit Vim, you can install Pally on your computer. So, and you just write, I use Pally, and then I write Pally and paste the URL afterwards, and then they give me a list of all the WCAG issues on that. And that's very nice to finding like these bad contrast issues that we know almost 80% of all websites has. And you should download and add a scanner to your pipeline as well. I use Pally for that as well. It's called Pally CI. And I have used it on projects in GitLab and GitHub and on big projects and small projects, and it works on everything. So you add it to the pipeline, and then when you are pushing some code that is making more issues, it will break the building process and give you a list of all the issues you have created. That's very neat. You should learn how to use a screen reader, because one common mistake we do as developers is thinking that our customers are experts themselves, but they are not. David, a 75-year-old who just started to go blind but has never worked on a computer in his whole life, doesn't have any better prerequisites than you to know how to navigate a screen reader. You are the expert. You are the one working with technology, and you are also the one who has made the app. And if you can't use a screen reader on your own app, how is David supposed to do it? And then keep the design simple. I hear this too much that, oh no, the design is so pretty and nice, but we can't afford to make it accessible because that will cost so much. And then you need to scale it down. If you are breaking the law by having a too fancy design, then you can't afford a design. It's way better with a website in black and white in Times New Roman without any design at all than a website that isn't accessible because it doesn't exclude anyone from using it. Okay? And if you now are still making websites that actively discriminate people from using them, I will look at you like this. I'm only sort of kidding, because I don't expect perfection. I am not perfect myself. But I do want you to remember the 1, 2, or 3 takeaways you have from this presentation today. And I want you to want to make accessible websites. I want you to have my annoying voice as a tiny little voice in the back of your head every time you are making something new, and try to add some flashes or forget about adding ARIA labels, for example. I want you to know how it is when things aren't made for you, how annoying it is. And if you think that this presentation has been annoying, then I have gotten my point across, because it should be annoying. Now, thanks. And if you have some questions, oh, I've gotten labels. There we go. If you have some questions, you can email me, add me on LinkedIn if you want to. You can scan this QR code to see the whole presentation, download the slides if you want to. And then I have a blue sky, FRK frontend. In Norwegian, frøken is like miss. So it's Miss Fronten, or yeah, Fröken Fronten. I don't know how to pronounce it in English. Anyway, if you want to contact me on Slack, I have on this NDC Slack channel, this is my profile picture. So if you find Elise Kristiansen and you find this profile picture, that's me. And then I will be very happy if you give me some reviews on this presentation, because it's the first time I'm holding it to anyone. So I hope it was nice. So thank you very much.